So our last level that we're going to look at is really that of our trees. And, they say you can't see the wood for the trees. And at this level, it's also politics that takes place at an organizational level. And here we're dealing with informal power, but it really is speaking to the organizational norms and assumptions and routines that actually govern the organization. And we were brought in to deliver a coaching performance program for one of the big insurance organizations. And they basically tasked us with upskilling their team leaders who looked after a massive sales force that took both inbound and outbound calls with improving sales. They had had a lot of burnt leads. They had been dealing with a lot of client complaints. And they felt that they could improve the performance of the area. So we went in and we started engaging with the different team leaders. And everything was going fine until we spoke about the fact that they needed to coach their top performers. Whoa. And we immediately got kickback. And we were told, no, I am not going to be coaching my top performers. My top performers know what they're doing, and I am not going to be having these conversations with them. So we were kind of stuck because we thought there's no way you can do a coaching performance program that is only really focused on, say, your average or your underperforming individuals, because then it's going to be seen as some sort of a poor performing initiative or poor performance initiative, and that wasn't what it was. It really was about driving improved performance for everyone. So again, if we look at some of the tactics that we can use when dealing with this level of terrain, firstly assessing if the behavior are actually advancing the goals of the organization or the area, asking questions that bring these behaviors to the surface, making the implicit explicit, and getting formal feedback about the experience. We were very lucky that one of the tools that we used as part of the Coaching for Performance program was call assessments. So listening to calls and using the feedback from the calls to inform the coaching process that would take place from there. And as luck would have it, one of the calls just happened to be for one of the top performers for the very, very resistant team leader that we were actually dealing with that was also influencing a number of different individuals in the space. And we listened to the call, and it was a shocker of a call. This was one of their top sales performers. And the agent actually closed the call off by telling the customer, "Thanks for wasting my time." And it was incredible. So we finished listening to the call, and I was like, okay, so I just want to check that we're still all in agreement that our top performers don't need coaching. And you could just see the whole room was just like, and it was such a great thing. But what happened there is that we were able to make the implicit explicit. But another thing is that we were able to challenge norms that were in the organization around top performers. And I know that many of you have experienced this. When it comes to a lot of organizations with sales forces, it's almost like they have their own set of rules. And the rules that apply to everyone else don't apply to them. And that's what we mean about those assumptions and underlying norms that often contradict the overt and spoken values of an organization. So it's really about asking the right questions and finding ways of getting feedback around the behavior in order to elicit the change that we wanted to see. So we were very lucky that we had that call, but I think it definitely shifted things for them a lot. So Leah, I mean, sometimes the norms and values in organizations do hold businesses back from change. Have you seen this in organizations, and what did you do to navigate that terrain?
That's a tough question, and wood for the trees, right?
Yeah.
So I've worked on a project with a client where you walk in and you look at the values of the organization and the norms and the practices look so great. You're excited to work on the project and put this out to action until you start to see the behaviors on that grassroots and the agendas and the politics start to play out in Cogwell. And earlier somebody pointed out about how individuals say the right things. I think Sandra said that. They say the right things to win the agenda in the core. And being stuck in this and observing this, as a change practitioner, you kind of all sorts, because some tools might help you, might not help you. Because you start to see people doing things on projects or deliverables that start to hold back the results. And in this particular case, this political case, is a situation where I'm working with two clients in the same dynamic, but the one that's delivering for the other client is actually the one creating the politics. So it's almost like a domino effect that's going to snowball into something that's really not going to get the results that we want to see. And on recommendation, and one of the tools to use is to look at team cohesion. How do you see the results of how people can work collectively together, collaboratively together, and showcase to the client, to the stakeholders, and say, here's your red light, here's your facts. And then the result of that is either they use it, don't use it, and when they don't use it because it doesn't speak to their agenda, you have a problem. But what you then need to do very quickly is to show the facts and the results to say, well, then your project's not going to deliver. Because this behavior or these results or these individuals will hinder back the project. And as a change practitioner, you've got to almost have a round hat to knowing the technology, the stakeholders, the results for ROI, the results for return on talent. And it gets even more complicated if you also have Section 189 situations that may be prevalent or other projects. So the terrain becomes big. I like those trees because it's a forest, right? So you almost need to start to navigate or understand the lay of the land and everything else that could be happening in that. And team cohesion is the best place and a tool to check it from that direct project element. And if you can show the results on one piece, you can start to win over or influence other projects or other teams or the results of a bigger piece in terms of rolling out transformation in a business.
And I think in this example as well, what Leah did really, really well as a change professional was she was great at giving feedback to some of the senior stakeholders of one of the clients. And they were quite surprised to hear about some of the behaviors that had been playing out. They honestly did not expect it. So it was so interesting how the organization had a completely different idea to their people's behavior to what was really going on the ground. And I think that's also quite important for us as leaders and change professionals, is sometimes you need to call it. Sometimes you need to be the one that's actually evidencing these sorts of behaviors that other leaders are not always aware of, and what the implications are to the project or the change initiative. So we've looked at those different political terrains. I'd like to find out through Poll Everywhere again, what some of the terrains are that you're busy navigating. So if you're going to Poll Everywhere, I think there's also an option for you to put more than one terrain. But if you think about maybe your current project, what does the terrain look like that you are currently dealing with? Are you dealing with grassroots politics? Are you dealing with your rocks terrain? Are you dealing with your mountains? Or are you dealing with your trees? I think there's an option that you can actually select all four, Joy. Wow. So that's really great. I mean, and I see the pins are changing and moving around. But what I like about this is it shows that all of you are navigating different terrains and maybe a number of terrains simultaneously, which means that you need to understand your strategies that you can use when dealing with these terrains. See lots of rocks, that's unsurprising. Lots of mountains, that's also unsurprising with bureaucracy and red tape. People blocking us from being able to move forward. That signatory that's never, ever, ever, ever available, but they're the only signatory. Kind of like, why? Why? Oh, fantastic. So really, really interesting. Not so much grassroots, though. I would have thought I'd see more there. Okay. Stunning. So thank you. Thank you so much for your feedback. So there's some practical skills that we can use to navigate politics. And again, some of these you may be familiar with, but some of these may be things that you can apply when you go back into your environment. One of the first skills that we can look at is building strategic networks. And the focus here is it needs to be on quality, not quantity. So really, really good politically savvy players know who the key individuals are in the different areas that they need to be building a relationship with. So it's not, a spray and pray approach. It's going, who are the key individuals that I need to build really, really strong networks with in order to drive change within an organization. One of the things that I want to just caution here when we talk about building strategic networks is to please be mindful of your ally echo chamber. Please don't just be aligning yourselves with people that echo your thoughts, your views, and your opinions around your project or your organization, because it's really not going to be helpful. And that really speaks to the next point, which is forming genuine connections. But I'm going to add an addition to that. It's forming genuine connections with your opponents. The adage that says, keep your friends close and your enemies closer could never, ever be more relevant than here. And just because you don't see eye to eye with someone doesn't mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. They're simply seeing things from a different point of view. By avoiding them and by staying with your ally echo chamber, you're actually not seeing the big picture. We do have an elephant. An elephant is big. Some of you see the trunk. Some of you see the tail. Some of you are seeing the ear. But you're not all seeing the full elephant. By building great relationships with your competitors, it means that you could start harnessing a bigger picture. It also means that through those meaningful connections, and empathy is actually a fantastic tool for diffusing conflict. The third one is active listening, and here it's actually more about situational awareness and observation. It's not just being an active listener, it's being aware of what's going on around you. It's being able to observe what's going on around you. It's not just what people are saying, it's how they're saying it. It's not just what people are saying, it's what they're not saying. It's not just what people are saying, it's is their behavior actually supporting the things that they're going to say? Don't worry, I'm right behind you. And then they're never there. Well, they're clearly not right behind you because they're not there. So it's really being situationally astute. And I remember I made such a big mistake on one of my projects where the guy that I'd been sitting next to, I'd been sharing my frustrations with one of my difficult stakeholders on the team that just was really not supporting me in any shape or form. And I still remember saying to him, like, oh, she's this and she's that, and oh, she doesn't do this, and only to kind of increase my situational awareness at one point in time and realize that they were actually in a relationship.
Oh.
Yeah, and it wasn't an overt relationship at all. And I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? Like, how did I not see that? So it really is about being very aware of what's going on around you. Yeah. Another is around EQ and enhancing your EQ. Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, then be understood. And in order for us to be politically savvy, we've really got to be in control of ourselves. I always say, how do you wield influence over others if you are unable to wield influence over yourself? So you've really have to start thinking about, how am I going to, and Sandra, to your point, if I'm seeing this playing out, I've got to be thinking 10 steps ahead. For each step that I take, what is the result going to be? And by throwing my toys and walking out and screaming at people or sulking and just not talking to this, this person, like what's the impact going to be? So really just controlling your own impulses. Another great tool is displaying appropriate vulnerability. There's nothing better than being able to walk into a potentially contentious conversation with going, I just want to start off by acknowledging my role that I've played here. I realize that I probably could have done this a little bit differently. I realize that maybe I didn't handle this very well. So you're automatically taking the person off the defensive by showing vulnerability and by showing a sincerity to actually make things work. Building trusting relationships. Stephen Covey Jr. talks about the speed of trust. And I don't have to tell you about trust, but it's so critical in being able to drive change in political environments. The more people trust you, the more you're going to be able to influence. But in order for people to trust you, you've got to watch what you do. You can't say one thing and then do another thing. So you've really got to be operating from a place of integrity as well. If people don't trust you, you need to start asking yourself why. What is it that you've done in order to break that trust? Another thing is around not just identifying the elephant in the room, but also being able to tactfully surface the elephant with people that need to find out about it. So what's really going on, and how can we actually address this elephant that we've identified? But it's doing it in a diplomatic manner as well. So just because hiding things and not dealing with the elephant doesn't mean that it's going to just go away. And last but not least, my favorite, what is your role that you have played in the politics to date? And one of the things we also have to be just cautioning ourselves around is, why am I taking this approach, and who have I allied myself with? And am I taking this stance because I'm supporting my friend? And what is the cost of your approach to the greater change? Are you inadvertently sabotaging your own change because you're so busy backing up your buddy because it's what you think is the right thing to do? And another thing, which is really, really critical, is also understanding whether you're being played or not. Really, really politically savvy people also know how to play you. Please be careful that you're not being played. Why is this person asking you to do this? What is it that they actually want you to do? How is it going to influence the overall results of the initiative? Sandra, I think just going back to the experience that you have, any practical tips that you'd like to add to share with the audience around skills that they can use to enhance their ability to drive change?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things that I want to say is be careful you don't get caught up in the middle of the political game that's being played. If you think of it like a merry-go-round, it's so easy for you to lose sight of what's going on. And so imagine a child's play area where you get onto the merry-go-round and you're in the middle of the merry-go-round and your world is spinning around you. It's so easy to get caught up in that. So you're actually losing sight of what's going on. You've got to keep on, remind yourself to get off the merry-go-round and stand on the outside and look in. So that is the first one that I would really say. The next one is to don't play the man, play the ball. So if we think back to the game that we spoke about right in the beginning, it's also very easy to get caught up in, that's my politician, that's the one that wants the specific outcome, and you land up playing the man. And the next minute, this blooming game is being played on around you, and you've actually lost. So be careful not to play the man. Yes, watch the man, watch your opponent, but be very careful you don't play the man, play the ball. I think another really good tip is to do your homework. When you get into a role, a change management role or any role, do your homework very carefully to understand every single player, right down to the person that cleans your office. Because there is a game that everyone's playing. And a good friend of mine who actually sits in this audience does a very lovely thing where whenever he meets somebody, he actually does a little dial and he marks it off. So like kind of what is the span of control or what is the span of politics that this person will or won't play. So you very quickly identify that. So do your homework and do it well. The last two that I would say is have a voice. It doesn't matter who you're dealing with in the organization. If you are put in a role as a change agent, you've been mandated into that role, have a voice. Don't shy away from it. If you're shying away from it, you're actually not taking up your role. It's that whole thing of if you get invited to the seat of a table, sit at the table and put the chair right up against the table. Don't sit on the outside. And the last thing I want to say is be humble. Don't just, you have to be humble in situations like this. If you're seen as a bull in a china shop or having your own political agendas or whatever, you've actually lost the game already. Be humble, have your integrity. So, and I always apply that in every role that I've always applied. Just be humble and true to yourself. So that would be my advice.
Thank you. Just adding on top of that, for those of you that are change professionals, we already have a number of different tools that we use on a day-to-day basis, and even as leaders, that can help us navigate politics better. And you only have to start off with your change impact assessment to go, with our change impact assessment, we're really, really good at going, how is this change going to impact people, process, and technology? But what we don't always go is, we don't always go, because of this, how is this likely to play out with this audience group? What is going to be some of the resistance that we can expect? Is the system replacing someone else's system and it's their baby? You can put your money on it that there's going to be a game that's playing out. Are there scarce resources that are at play here? And how is that going to influence the different people that I need to leverage and draw on? So with all of the different tools that you have at your disposal as a leader and a change manager, you need to also apply a political lens when you're creating them. My sponsor involvement plan needs to include aspects that are helping me navigate politics, that I've identified who the political players are. I know who my sponsor can deal with. I also know who I need to deal with. I know who my champion networks need to engage with. If I look at stakeholding mapping and analysis, who are my problematic stakeholders? Am I actually flagging them when I do my stakeholder analysis and mapping? And how does that then influence the plan that I put in play in terms of the way that I'm going to be engaging and managing them? How do I look at the feedback that comes from our leadership alignment assessments? Am I really, really digging deep in those leadership alignment sessions? Or am I just allowing them to play lip service to what it is that they think I want them to say? So we've got a whole range of tools that we already have at our disposal that we can use as a community to also navigate politics better. That said, I think it would be really, really interesting to get your feedback on any other tips and tricks that you've used that have helped you navigate organizational politics while driving change. So building your alumni, connecting different stakeholders with each other, great strategy, remaining objective, and sometimes it's difficult, especially when we're dealing with emotional issues, looking at using historic data on past change efforts. Do what you say, so the whole integrity thing coming through. Know your own strengths and your development areas, yeah. Remind yourself why you're there and focus on the end goal. Be brave, I love that. Be proactive rather than reactive, absolutely. Know yourself well enough to know when you need to step away and take time out to refuel, yeah. Ask your opponent's opinion on the solution and potentially challenge it face to face. Be kind. Stay focused on the end goal. Realizing in the way that it's a game, so have fun, which gives you the energy that you need. I like that. Point out the elephant, yes. Find a sponsor and learn from him, absolutely. Listen to people's stories, yeah. Remove the rumor mill, yes, by communicating frequently and clearly, having the right conversations, using tools like personality profiling to understand the different players, yeah. Training sessions to create awareness. Really, really fantastic insights here. Choosing your battles, absolutely. Holding business accountable. Remain calm. It's easier for some of us than others. Be present, yeah. Don't get defensive. So really, really fantastic insights that are coming from all of you. And thank you so much. And, you know, even if we just take our top 3 when we walk away from here today and apply them and see what different results you get, that's definitely a fantastic way for us to move forward. So just aware that we are over time, I think to Carmony's point, politics can be used in such a positive way. And you know, through politics, culture can be changed. Conflict can improve job satisfaction. A political backlash can lead to opportunities for learning and growth. Relationships can be improved. Friction can lead to innovation. We've got embracing diversity, meaning embracing conflict and politics, and also driving change with a win-win mindset. And what you'll find is you'll all be given access to these slides after the presentation. But on the back, we've got all of the articles that we referenced as input into our Change Talk presentation. And there is a whole host of really, really fantastic practical aspects around politics being used for good. And instead of seeing conflict as a negative thing, looking at conflict as a means of driving positive outcomes.